Hi everybody, welcome for this podcast, and we have amazing person today, and we're going to talk about so many topics um, and a lot of things like meditation, Reiki, and all that stuff. So we have Zoe today on with us, and so Zoe.
Hello, everyone. So happy to be saying hi. This is actually my first podcast, so here we are together. Very exciting times. A little bit about myself. I am a student of integrative medicine at Quantum University. I love this new view of medicine because it really does connect with all that we have been hearing from Vernul here. All of the beautiful things where we can actually create our health, we can create our well-being with thoughts, with prayer, with love. So important. And I'm actually studying the science behind it. How does it work, and how we can see it scientifically, and how basically we can explain the things that we already know to the people who are in disbelief. How to
Wow.
use their own language to bring them in and make them realize that we are talking about the same thing. We just have different languages, and that's something that we need to work on. Create a universal language of love and make it accommodate for everyone's different belief systems.
So
And
true.
yeah, I've been interested in healing, in practicing meditation, love, connecting to the inner Holy Spirit, connecting to Source, connecting to God through these practices, through love, through connecting with yourself. So that's been a journey in and of itself. And now I'm bringing in the scientific aspect of how do we connect these two realms where we realize that they are actually one and the same. So very excited. Thank you for having
So,
me.
so yeah, Zoe, how did you come on this path? Were you
Um,
always interested in this kind of thing, like spirituality, healing, all this stuff, all these modalities? Or,
so
I mean,
I'm
what's your story?
always been interested in spirituality, but I never thought so. Turns out I've always been talking about concepts, ideas, and things from the Bible, from many things, but I never knew that it was from there. I was just like, this is how I feel. I think this is interesting, don't you? And then people would kind of repeat it back to me and be like, what you're saying is here, and this guy talks about it here. And so it was very much a progress of me kind of accepting a part of myself that has always been there, but kind of bringing it into the light and being like, oh, right. No, yeah, this has been here always. And it's been a long journey. I'm only
Yeah.
22, but I can say that it feels like it's been a long journey. And I'm so happy that we're here right now. There was a lot of struggle in my teenage years, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. And I think I needed to go through that to get here. I needed to go through that to understand, to feel compassion, to feel true empathy. And I think that I, in a way, like signed up for those experiences in order to grow in a certain way and in order to be available for other people who might be going through similar things at this time. I needed to go into it and get out of it in order to help others. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that at the time, of course, as a 15-year-old, you don't understand. Why is all of this happening to me? But then, it comes to later and you realize how much you've learned, and you never really want to take it back because it allowed you to meet the people that you've met. It allowed you to learn the things that you needed to learn. It allowed you to connect however you
Yeah.
had to. And yeah, it's been long. And and I think at my ultimate low, and that's what's funny about the ultimate low, is there really is no other way but up. So when I reached the absolute bottom that an 18-year-old can be at, and I'm talking suicidal, depression, like very disconnected. When I reached that ultimate low, there was this moment of, I cannot keep running. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot continue trying to escape from my own mind. I cannot continue trying to escape from a part of myself that I've been pushing into the corner for years. I just need to look at it and
Mm-hmm.
see what this is. and kind of get to know her, get to know what this is and work with it, integrate it. And so that was a moment where I actually kind of started, for the first time in my life, I think, sitting with myself and questioning who I am, and not just who I am, but who I want to be, who I'm capable of becoming, and knowing that there is this thing inside me, inside all of us, which make it available for us to become anything. Because at the end of the day, we are the sons of God. We are capable of becoming absolutely anything that we can imagine. And that is a really harsh reality, because the
Mm,
problem is that when you realize that, the reason why most people don't realize this is because it's scary. Because if you are in control of your life, if you are in control of who you can become, then that means that all the stuff that's happening to you is also in your control. And that's a hard fact to accept. You don't
mm,
want to accept that, because it's like, I'm causing this. I am causing the suffering in my life. But the thing is, once you get over that fact, once you take responsibility and go, it's for a reason, it's for a purpose, I take responsibility, then you also step into your power, because you
mhm,
realize, well, if I created all of this, I have the power to create something better. I have the power to spread love, to spread healing, to actually enlighten and love and nurture every single person that I come into contact with.
mhm.
And that power is amazing to step into. Like, once you realize that, you're kind of like, oh, you know. So that's where we are, I guess, right now, stepping into it, still learning, practicing. I mean, it's harder and then in
Mhm,
the beginning than you think, because you do need to uncondition some programs and kind of relearn a lot of things that we've been taught. Everything's material. No,
mhm,
there's no energy, and no, you cannot influence your world, and da 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 da. There's a lot of those programs that it takes a while to unlearn, but it's an everyday journey, and I love to do it. It's exciting each day to wake up and be like, what am I going to unlearn today? What am I going to learn? Who am I going to meet? Who is going to inspire me, and who might I inspire as well?
wow, wow. So what are the things you are into? Meditation, Reiki, and what kind of other modalities of spiritualities that you've been into, and what are you offering people? To uh, how
Yeah.
do I say it? Do you offer these things to people?
Yes, yes. So at the moment, I mean, I'm still learning a lot of things, and I think I will forever keep learning. It's something that my dad told me from since I was young. He was like, always have a beginner's mind.
Mhm,
Never accept that you're a master, because there's always more to learn, and it also keeps you open-minded. It doesn't shut you off from the information that might come. So I will always be a student, I feel. But at the moment, I love to spend time on meditating, although I do feel like it's time for me to up level in terms of actually doing it more than I do
mhm,
currently, which is about 20 minutes a day. I feel like I'm ready for an hour a day, which is a big step. It's like, an hour? Can I sit there for an hour with myself? But
mhm,
recently, it's been very easy to go into the void in a way, and so I kind of have been honestly like creating my own meditation practices. Just off the top of my head, I do it, and then it feels so good. I'm like, wait, actually, I could totally guide people through this, because this was a pretty good visualization. So then I note it
mhm,
down. So that's some things that I do. I guide people through meditations. I work a lot with chakra healing and chakra cleansing. I really feel like they're just such a beautiful part of the human energy system, of the human body. And even in my uni, we're learning about how those energy centers are not only connected to so many organs, but also to so many emotions, energy and motion. And I just really like working with them, because I think it's such a beautiful way to kind of tap into the subtle, tap into the energetic realm.
mhm,
Apart from that, I do practice Reiki, but I'm
mhm,
not at the point where I feel talented enough to actually do it on other people. I have been doing it on my grandmother, because She is a little bit sick right now. And at the end of the day, if you have a tool that you can try, it's always worth trying. I don't think you need to be a pro to
Mhm.
try. You
Mhm.
kind of, if it's coming from pure heart, if it's coming
Mhm.
from pure intention, you will still be doing something. And it's been a really big confidence boost because she actually feels it. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, doing it, imagining light coming in, coming out. And she has her eyes closed. She's been screaming for the past 20 minutes, and she stops screaming. The moment that I put my hands up, she stops screaming and she goes, "Oh my God, I can feel the sunshine, the love coming out." And I'm like, wait, what? You
Mhm.
can't. So that's been a really nice experience actually for me as well. And then apart from that, at the moment, I am working with coaching some people. It's very intuitive. There is no set program, there is no schedule. I very much tailor it to the individual, to what I feel like they need, because I'm very adaptable like that. And I kind of just get ideas depending on what they tell me. And then we try it and it works. So it's very different for everyone. And it's kind of more like a guidance. Like if
Mhm.
someone needs accountability, because that's an important one, right? We all know we need to meditate, and yet we just don't do it unless someone's like, "Hey, you're paying me for this. Have you meditated today? Have you also done this, this, and this?"
Mhm.
So those are just some things that I'm doing. I guess it always changes at the end of the day. What I feel like is more needed, what I feel like is coming in, what I feel like passes, just going
So
with.
yeah, so why meditation? I mean,
Yeah, why meditation? Well, I think meditation is something that when I have kids, it's going to be just one of the basics. You brush your teeth every day for dental hygiene. You have a shower every day for physical hygiene, and you meditate every day for mental hygiene. Because the thing is with meditation is that you actually have to sit with yourself and your thoughts. This makes you realize sometimes, especially in the beginning, how critical you are of yourself, how harsh, like how you speak to yourself is something that we would never say to other people. I mean, sometimes if we actually question how I, for example, used to speak to myself, I actually wrote it down one time. I said, "Dear Zoe," then I crossed out the name and I literally put someone in there that I'm not necessarily a fan of. Like, that's
Mhm.
not my best friend. And it sounded psychopathic. I was like, I would never say this to anyone. So why do I say it to myself? And there is a certain aspect of, you suck. Like there is a you that's talking and there is a you that's receiving that information. So once you meditate, you kind of learn to realize that there is two different selves that are talking to each other. There is the ego, and then there is the overself, the spirit, the love.
Mhm.
And so when you meditate, you actually start to kind of, in a way, analyze and realize that this ego is not necessarily you. This patterned behavioral trauma response, toxic behavior, it's not you. That
Mhm.
is something else. And when you start to realize that, you can kind of like, manage it, quiet it down. Like you wouldn't yell at a child for not knowing what to do, but you
Mhm.
also wouldn't necessarily, if the child says, "Let's eat ice cream at 2 in the morning," maybe not. You don't listen that much anymore because you realize that they don't have that much authority. And I think that aside, meditation, like once you've kind of overcome the first couple hurdles, it's
Mhm.
also a way for you to truly connect to God, to spirit, because you are in a space where you are not thinking of all of the material things, of all of the problems, the worries, the everyday stuff. You just quiet yourself, you quiet your mind, and you just allow yourself to feel. And by
Mhm.
allowing yourself to feel into yourself, but also into everything, you kind of allow God to come in without barricades, without walls, without all of this other filtration stuff, where it's easier for you to kind of connect and for you to maybe even hear some guidance. So when I go into my meditations, I usually write down a couple questions that I want an answer to. And that's what I go in with. So I quiet my mind, I do the process. And just because I had that intention of asking those answers, it's not like I get a straight up voice in my head. But
Mhm.
when I'm out of the meditation, I have this feeling of what I'm supposed to do. this feeling of, oh, right. I don't know why, but I
Mm-hmm.
realize that it makes sense. And so I just do think that this void, right, is
Mm-hmm.
where we truly connect to that universal love, that
Mm-hmm.
love without barriers and understanding without a process, without
Mm-hmm.
needing to know all of the nits and grits, just being there.
Wow. So you said when you're doing meditation, you spoke about something called as void.
Mhm.
What is that?
So, well, the void. I think what's really interesting about the void is a lot of people in the begin, like, first of all, you need to experience the void to some degree to kind of understand,
Mm-hmm.
the void. But for people that are starting out, it's important to understand that the void itself is not something you just step into like a room. It's not a light switch. It's not like you're out of the void, you're into the void. The way that I see it, it's more dynamic. It's more alive than that. It's something that you allow yourself to rest into, kind of like water. You walk
Mm-hmm.
into the water, you don't, you could jump in, possible, but it's nicer to just kind of like lie down and let it take you. It's not
Mm-hmm.
such a direct on off. You can snap out of it, but it's more like going into the void is kind of just you being with yourself without worries, thoughts, everyday things, and without the ego, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
When you manage to quiet down the ego enough that you kind of just focus on something else. And that's why breath work is very good, because you're able to focus on something so that you're pushing out everything else. But you're not pushing it out, you're just letting it disappear. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a moment in time when in the beginning, you're just focusing, I'm breathing in, I'm imagining water coming out, breathing in, breathing out. But there's a moment when you lose yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the point when you kind of actually just lose the ego. You lose your ego, you're not losing yourself, but you feel lost, but not in a bad way. You just, that moment where you tune in, where you
Mm-hmm.
lose that moment of the narrative, of the chronological order, of the thoughts, and you kind of just are there, and you feel like there's this moment of bliss, of presence, and of feeling like I could be here forever. Like you're no
Mm-hmm.
longer thinking, oh, is it time yet? How much time have I been here for? 5 minutes? Oh, has it been like 15 minutes already? Oh, when's my alarm gonna go off? Ooh, like, have I done 20 minutes already? When's the void coming?
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it's not a thing that you achieve. You rather just lose all of those worries or concerns, and you're just there, and you have this moment of bliss where you're like, I could be here forever. And
Wow.
that's when you're already in the void. And then of course, with training, you get to stay there longer. But usually the ego, after like 15 minutes or something, comes knocking on the door like, wait, we haven't been listened to for a while, like, come on. And then swims into the void, and it's like, okay, like, I feel like we're good now, we did it, we're good, like, now my back's cramping, okay, like, we're done. But
Mm-hmm.
with training, you get to spend more time there. And actually, the funny thing is, like, in the beginning, I thought 20 minutes was like a great time. I was like, yeah, like, I meditate for 20 minutes, all good.
Mm-hmm.
Then one time, I meditated for an hour, but it wasn't on purpose. It wasn't like, I'm going to sit here for 1 hour, because that's not the point, right? The whole point is that you get into the void and you somehow manage to stay there. Like maybe you've worked on your ego enough that it doesn't come knocking on the door and take you out within 20 minutes. Rather, it just lets you be there. And it
Mm-hmm.
was funny because after and this is just an estimate because I have no idea, I had no sense of space and time, but I'm thinking about 40 minutes in is when I had this insane, like, I mean, it was just so insane. Like basically, I was this cube floating in space,
Mm-hmm.
and then the cube turned into liquid gold.
Mm-hmm.
And I genuinely was this liquid gold in 5 different places. My consciousness was split into 5 different places in different shapes. And then this liquid gold floating in space was making all of these shapes, and it made the shape of a tree. And then I was the tree. The gold imagined that it was this tree shape that it was making. And I imagined my entire life as a tree. And then it made this other shape, and it was like a frog. And then it imagined, so I imagined being the entire life of the frog. And then the third or fourth shape was this girl sitting in meditative lotus position. And I imagined my entire life as
Mm-hmm.
myself. And then it went on. And then I kind of freaked out of it, because this is when the ego goes, whoa, 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 are we not real?
Mm-hmm.
So, but then I just was like, no, it's all good. It's just me connecting to everything. It's
Mm-hmm.
me connecting to the God within me, which is everything. It is
Mm-hmm.
that God is the tree. God
Yeah.
is me. God is you. And it was funny because I actually had this experience where I could feel and see the life as all of these other entities,
Mm-hmm.
not myself as a separate being. And then when I came back, my main realization from that meditation, which lasted about 2 days, was that I was in awe of the fact that matter exists, not energy. That was like a given. Energy is real, but the fact that I can touch condensed energy, the fact that it's crystallized and on a low enough vibration that I can touch it, that I can move through it, on it,
Mm-hmm.
that I can like, interact with it in a physical plane, for me was just mind blowing. And I was walking through my hallway like really slowly, because I was just like, I can walk on energy. And
Mm-hmm.
that to me was the true miracle of God, that we can live in this physical plane of existence where we can touch, we can smell, we can taste, where it's not just energy in a big bowl, which is great, don't get me wrong, but that we can actually interact with it, and that we're actually in the illusion that we are separate, that
Mm-hmm.
I have having a separate experience as you, and actually it's just God having all of these different experiences in order to create the whole. And it's just, it was just beautiful. So that is the void. When
Wow.
you get to stay in the void long enough, you truly do get to see something that is so amazing that it just changes your life,
So
and you're like, get
i-
back.
is it the kind of this experiences, how this experiences that you have in the void, or how the meditation that you do in the void is affecting your life? That's how is it affecting your life? Is it what difference is it making in your
Yeah,
life?
yeah. So I think that by going into the void, first of all, you learn to quiet your ego. And then
Mm-hmm.
even in your life, when the ego comes back onto its day-to-day 9 to 5 schedule,
Mm-hmm.
you're able to not listen to it as much. And that's very important, because usually, let's say judgment, right? Judgment is the ego. I don't like her. I like her. I like this, but I don't like that. That is judgment. And when you are able to realize that that is not the truth,
Mm-hmm.
that is not necessarily, just objective, it's just the ego being like, no, then you're able to kind of treat life more openly, and you're able to move through it without too much pain, because the problem is that most pain, I think, comes from our understanding of this is bad, this is good.
Mm-hmm.
And when you realize that it's just all good, that it's not this is bad, this is good, rather just it just is, and it's beautiful the way that it is, and even bad things are blessings in disguise, it just comes about later. That is something that you can realize more and step into, I think, by meditation, by training your
Yeah.
mind to not be so reactive, to not be so judgmental, to not be so critical, and to not take everything so personally. Because then another thing with the void is you have this feeling of being connected to
Mm-hmm.
everything, to everyone. Like you realizing that you are all one, that you are all love, that you are all God. And when you realize that, you actually just become a kinder and more loving person. Also, with not so much anger, because if someone does you wrong, then it's like
Mm-hmm.
that's their experience, but that is God experiencing that experience. And I cannot judge that person. I cannot
Mm-hmm.
get mad. I'm just going to, I'm going to focus on my own experience. I'm going to focus on trying to help. So everything just becomes a lot more loving once
Mm-hmm.
you try to generally enter the void more often. Plus, another bonus is that you're not so reactive. Our nervous systems are very dysregulated in this world because we are experiencing so many triggers. The world is crashing, government, global warming, I don't know. You're
Yeah.
experiencing triggers all the time. But when you practice meditation and going into the void, you are actually strengthening your vagus nerve.
Mhm.
And that's in charge of you going into parasympathetic mode, into the calm state, rest and digest, rather than fight or flight all the time. So you
Mhm.
are healthier. You are able to actually rest and digest. You have more energy. You are able to react to situations which are not actually harmful. Because the problem is that when we do not regulate our nervous system, when we do not train our vagus nerve, which is something that you can do also through meditation, then any little trigger that happens, your nervous system will set off and it will go into
Mhm.
fight or flight. And that's
Mhm.
not actually beneficial when it's not a fearful situation. Like there's no tiger jumping out at me. I just saw a story that was negative.
Mhm.
There's no actual threat. So why am I constantly in a fight or flight mode? Why do I
Mhm.
feel like I need to run? I'm stressed. I can't work. I shut down. And that's something that you also achieve through meditation is you learn how to actually regulate your nervous system, your emotions, your body, and to rest and digest more, which all of us need because that is health. In order to be healthy, in order to live, we need to rest and digest. We cannot be functioning on adrenaline and cortisol all the time.
Yeah. So basically, we are the external that we are seeing all the time is a result of our internal conditioning, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the software inside us is really defining how everything is going to be in our life.
Mhm.
So basically, when we do meditation, whether it's void or whether it's any kind of meditations, we are literally tapping into that sphere where we are literally designing our software, and we are trying to plan, we are planning out, what exactly, how amazing, we're going to become like kind of co-creators,
Yeah.
and we start creating the reality that is beautiful, that is amazing, that is helpful for everybody.
That actually reminds me of Dr. Joe Dispenza. He was talking a lot about the honeymoon. And so that's another, so the what he calls the honeymoon effect is that when we're in a honeymoon effect, when we're in a relationship in the very beginning and it's so exciting and you don't want to miss anything, that's exactly why your entire life is going great. Not just the relationship, because you are conscious, you are present, you are there. And by being present, you are consciously creating, co creating your reality. The problem is that when we are not conscious, and that basically means doesn't mean we're walking around unconsciously, but it does mean that unconscious programmings are leading our life. Because, for example, you're putting on your jacket. What are you focusing on? Not putting on your jacket, you're thinking of this, you're thinking of that, you're thinking of this in the past, this worry in the future, this deadline. You're drinking a cup of coffee. Are you enjoying that cup of coffee? Are you enjoying that moment? Do you want to pay attention to it? You're not. You're thinking of something else. But when we're in the honeymoon moment, we don't want to miss a thing. So even like me being next to the person who I'm in the honeymoon effect with, I don't want to miss what he's wearing. I don't want to miss my drink. I want to be there for every moment of it. And because of that, I am actually creating the reality that I want rather than my unconscious programmings creating it, which don't work in our favor. And then returning back to meditation, that's also why meditation, whatever type of meditation you do, is a really good way to, as you said, co create. Because by practicing meditation, you are also practicing being present, being there, not focusing on either the past or the future. And therefore, you are practicing this ability to not only co create, but also to continue being present. Like when I meditate in the morning, my whole day, I'm more present than when I skip it. If I skip it, I start my day with stress or emails, and then it moves on. And then I look back at my day and I'm like, what do I remember from my day? Like crystal clear. Nothing. The whole thing is a haze. I know I did this and this, but where did the time go? But when I start with meditation, I actually am more conscious moving through my day. I'm like, now we're going to look at the emails. And then after that, I sit outside and I enjoy my tea. I'm looking at the tree and I'm thinking of what flavors so the whole thing just kind of gets shifted as well, because you are practicing to be present. You are practicing to create. And as you said, you are creating also in the meditation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what does research, uh, tells about meditation? What is it saying?
Well, so many things. So many things. I think what's really interesting is that there is more and more research on meditation and on what it does to your brain waves, on what it does to your cells. I mean, I think the most interesting research that, I mean, at least I find very interesting is actually from Bruce Lipton's book, Biology of Belief. And he's not talking about the direct effect of meditation per se, but I actually just think it's really interesting how it connects. So, long story short, in our cells, we have these things called receptor proteins. And the receptor proteins are basically in charge of receiving the information of the environment. But it's not just physical. They also receive the energetic information, sound, electromagnetic frequencies, waves, etc. And our thoughts are electromagnetic frequencies and waves. So our thoughts, and especially during meditation, right, you are creating a more calm, which one is it called? Is it theta?
Yeah, data.
Yeah. So you're creating a more theta brainwave state, right? And that is then getting picked up by your receptor proteins. Why is this interesting? The reason why this is interesting is because your receptor proteins then send info to your effector proteins. They do this or that, whatever it's supposed to. And then what's even more interesting is that then this byproduct is that they influence the regulatory proteins. And the regulatory proteins basically act as a sleeve on your DNA. And so your DNA cannot actually activate itself. It cannot be read unless it's unsleeved. So it's actually the regulatory protein in charge of what part of your DNA is activated. And this is also why, through meditation, you can actually do so much more than just regulate your nerve. You can influence your DNA. You can actually influence what part of your DNA gets activated. And this is also why people who have, spiritual enlightenment moments, which I don't think we only have one of, it's many, have activated a certain part of their DNA, which before was only unavailable to them because they thought it was. They thought it's not possible. But then through meditation, through bringing in certain intentions, certain thoughts, and also through creating a theta wave state, you are actually rearranging the regulatory proteins around your DNA to be more beneficial for you, to actually be healthier and at an optimized, non-stressed state. And the other really cool thing is that the theta waves are actually the only thing that creates a difference in trauma patterns, because is something that, of course, as we know, is stored in the body. And it's really hard to overcome because whenever you have a trigger, that basically in the neural network fires off that one trigger point, and then it, boom, the whole thing lights up, everything that it's connected to, which is why trauma responses are so intense. And it's why it's hard to treat. Because how do you treat something when it just fires up the whole thing within a split second? However, they have found that when you create theta waves, then bring up the trauma during theta waves, then instead of lighting up the whole thing, you are actually, and this is a long process, which I don't even know how to explain, so I'm not going to, but basically you are changing that original neuron that fires up the other ones, and you are basically deactivating it. And so that's why now there's such things as like the havening technique, when like you're, for example, like soothing yourself, because this also creates theta waves, when you're soothing yourself while meditating and then bringing up a traumatic event so that you can deactivate that initial thing and actually heal trauma, like delete it. And I think that this is still very new. So obviously, I would not suggest necessarily like bring up your trauma alone with your first meditation. No, probably to a practitioner that is trauma informed and informed with the havening technique and the like. This is still new. It is very cool, but let's not bring up our traumas for fun alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So how does this you spoke about how it's really affecting our brain, our physiology, our DNA and all that stuff. So somebody who is sick, how can really use meditation to bring healing into his body, his or her body?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I mean, there's a lot incorporated, right? We do need the little combo of lifestyle, diet, etc. But
Mm-hmm.
definitely, I think it's so important to consider that meditation, presence, and all of these energetic modalities are also a part of this sandwich of healing. It's not just lifestyle and diet and medication. This is also a part of it. And so basically, I think, first of all, anyone who meditates, you are allowing your body to rest. You are
Mm-hmm.
actually telling your body, it's okay. We are safe. We can rest. We can digest. We can send whatever energy we need to wherever it needs to go. Because the problem originally, right, with sympathetic, is that when we're constantly on high levels of cortisol, adrenaline, our energy cannot go to where it needs to go
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to produce adrenaline, it's going to produce cortisol so that we can run or fight the tiger. But there's no tiger. And so it is an issue that a lot of people that are sick, of course, are stressed. Of course, they're stressed. I'm sick. I have to do this and this. But the problem is that by them being stressed and by I can't meditate because I have so much to do, because I can't do it, that is literally what is keeping the energy from going where it needs to go. Our body has an immense capability of healing itself. And
Mm-hmm.
yet we just get in its way. We get in its way because of this and that. So meditation is a way to kind of get out of the way, get out of the way of your body needing to do what it needs to do. And then, second of all, of course, intentions, going into meditation with intentions, affirmations, that is you taking an extra step, an extra initiative to direct it, to send more, because
Mm-hmm.
prayer, intention, affirmations, these all send more energy than what you, like, let's say, have available in the body. And so through this, you're actually just taking an extra step to be like, let's send some extra stuff here. So I think that it's, you can take different steps but already meditation is a big hooray, because most people don't allow their bodies to heal in its natural state of rest and digest. And then how is it supposed to heal if it's not resting and digesting? So that's one thing. And then belief,
Mm-hmm.
faith. I think it's so important. One of, like how I said that the receptor cells are picking up information. If we constantly tell ourselves that we're not going to heal, that it's not possible, you are literally perpetuating that. And I know it's hard. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard to say that you can, because it's not what we've been taught. It's not what we've been told. In reductionist biology, it doesn't make sense. How can a byproduct of matter influence matter itself? But in quantum physics, that we learned that that's not how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Energy comes first, matter comes second. And yes, we can influence matter. There was this woman, and so many more cases, but I'll just bring up this one as an example, who had a hip fracture since she was, like, I don't know, 3 or 4. And she actually, like, went through this process where she just imagined not falling off the swing that time when she was a kid. And she imagined it day after day after day. And she imagined saying, "Mommy, look, I jumped off and I didn't get hurt." And day after day. And after a while, her hip stopped hurting,
Wow.
which is already kind of like, wait, what? And then after a little bit more time, the hip fracture was just gone. It
Mm-hmm.
just, repaired, how do you say this?
Repaired or restored.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
restored. So actually, our body is capable of incredible things. I mean, the fact that our thoughts can influence our DNA and our cellular structures is already big, like, oh, and this is Dr. Bruce Lipton, who was talking about this, cell biologist, like, super cool guy. So this is science. This is true. And the only thing that's getting in our way is us thinking that it's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
You
Wow.
have to.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So we need to have kind of, when we are doing meditation, so guided visualization, how important they are? I mean, are you doing void and also guided visualizations?
Yeah, so I actually usually just guide myself. I sit there and then I guide myself through first some breathing, then some visualizations with breathing. And then that's kind of around the time when I get into this perfect flow state of it's hard enough for me to not lose track and think of something else, but
Yeah.
not too hard so that I can still let myself go. That's usually when I kind of drift into the void. However, this is not how I started. And I don't think you should. I think in
Mhm,
the beginning, you do need someone to guide you because your mind is not, it's kind of like a baby. You know, you're
mhm,
training your brain to do something that it hasn't done before. You're training your
mhm,
mind to act a certain way, to be okay with sitting there and not listening to the ego, which we usually do. So this is kind of like kindergarten. You
mhm,
don't send a kid to university and go, do it yourself, paper due on Thursday. You know, you
mhm.
help their hand in the beginning. You show them how to do it. You show them where to look. Oh, we wash our hands here. We do this here. So that's what guided meditations, I think, are for in the beginning. And that lasts a while. For me, I
Yeah.
think it lasted almost a year. And that's totally fine if it lasts longer. For each person, it takes a different amount of time. But I think guided meditations are there to direct your attention, to
Mhm.
tell you where to go. Because if they tell you to sit down and not think, that doesn't make sense. You know, you're sitting there and you're like, thought. What do you mean I don't think? What do you mean? It gets really annoying. And to be honest, even with guided meditations, it can be annoying when you don't know how to focus on what they're telling you to do. So all I can say is you have to find someone who can guide you, who you
Mhm.
basically are vulnerable with in a way, like a voice that you allow to guide you, because not all voices will work for us. I mean, it's all about resonance. So you have to find someone who you listen to and who you feel calm with and comfortable with, vulnerable enough that they are just guiding your attention now to your breath. It's okay to wander. Now you're wandering here. And through that, you are learning. You are literally training and learning how to do it yourself. Because then, once at one point, you're going to be able to maybe listen to guided meditations, which are 2 minutes in the beginning and then nothing for 20 minutes. And that's also a progress. And then after a while, you can sit down and not have anyone tell you anything, and you already know the steps. You know what to do, you know? So for me, I know the steps. I sit down and we're going to focus on our breath. First, we're going to focus on relaxing my body. Now we do a body scan. Now I focus on the breath. Now I bring in this visualization. Now I do this. And by going through the steps, because I've practiced it millions of times,
Mhm.
I'm able to get there by myself without wandering, because it's practice, it's training. So
Awesome. So, I mean, like viewers who are watching us today, like if they want to get into meditation, uh, what would you suggest? I mean, if they want to get into meditations, should they go for guided meditations? Then, where to go for?
well, I think in the beginning, if you've never tried before, I would definitely suggest starting with guided ones. And guided
Mhm,
ones that, choose a voice and a music that feels good.
mhm,
Listen to your body. Your body will know what it needs. Your body will know what will work. If you start something and it's annoying you, don't listen to it. Don't sit there and struggle. The whole point of meditation is for it to be easy. Now, will it be easy in the beginning? No, because your mind will fight you. It doesn't want to sit there and it doesn't want to be silenced. It's like,
mhm,
what are we doing? I don't understand. It's a child. You can't tell it to just be, we're gonna sit here. Okay. No, it's not submissive. But it's all about training, and be kind to yourself. If you've meditated 5 minutes for 3 days in a row, congratulations. You did something for 3 days in a row, even though you
mhm,
didn't in the beginning, even though it was hard. And don't compare yourself to the people who are meditating for 20 minutes to an hour, because you're in the beginning of your journey. We
mhm,
all started with 2 minutes, 5 minutes. And let me tell you that when I started, I was like doing a 5 minute meditation, and already at 1 minute, I was like, I feel like it's been 15. What am I doing? And it's hard and it
mhm,
takes, but at the end of the day, you should be proud of yourself every single time that you sit down and do it, even if it's for 5 minutes. And even if most of the time you were thinking, Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? First of all, you are doing it right. It's just in the beginning, it won't feel right. It will not feel right because it's not what we've been trained to do. But you don't have to worry about doing it right. Just allow yourself. And in the beginning, that will be hard. I'm going to repeat that a couple times because it is. It really is. I'm pretty sure you know this too. But you train. Nothing is easy in the beginning. If you're lifting weights, you can't say, I can't lift weights because I'm not strong. What? That's not
Yeah,
how it works. You lift the weights to become strong. It's the same with meditation. There's no one
so
who
true.
can meditation, but you need to start very in the beginning. You know, you don't start with the weights, with lifting 250 kilos.
Hmm.
Oh, you can't lift that. You start with the smaller weights first, and you're proud of yourself for doing it, even if it was hard.
Wow. So now let's just move from meditation and let's talk about energy healing. I mean,
Ooh.
I've been also talking on my channel on energy centers and all that stuff. So yeah, so what do you have to say about energy healing, clinical trials on that, distance healing, and all this stuff?
So exciting. So, okay, first I'd like to start with energy healing, just some trials. So, what I found really interesting, and this is around the time that I started learning energy healing, and I was just really like, how does it work? I don't understand. And I really like to understand stuff. It's
Mhm.
just who I am. But basically, I saw this on our uni in our course. They showed us this experiment, so to speak, where a woman had a blindfold on, and they were doing a live blood analysis. Now, what that means is it's not that they take the blood out and they look at it under the microscope. They put the needle in or something, and with a little camera at the end, so you're looking at the screen with what the blood looks like in the body, right? So when they did this in the beginning, her blood was not too healthy. I mean, not unhealthy either, but a little bit oxidized, a little bit morphed up, and moving in clumps quite slowly. Not super bad, but not super great either. And she had a blindfold on because, you know, making sure that it's not the placebo this time. Although that too is powerful, and, you know, that is a great thing to use. Use the placebo as much as you can, yes.
Mhm.
But they're also trying to show that it's not just placebo. So then she had a blindfold on, and this woman, this Reiki practitioner, came in, and you can see her putting her hands like 2 meters away from the woman. So it's not like, you know, you can feel it either. And she was just doing her thing. And literally within 3 seconds of her doing it, the blood starts to change.
Wow.
The shape of the blood went from, like, you know, these morphed figures into, over time, more round, like perfectly shaped, even uniform pellets. And also it started to declump, move faster. So her blood was actually just deoxidizing. It was like, here we go. And I think what's really interesting in that is, at the end of the day, we can never measure energy healing directly. And
Mhm.
that is why a lot of people struggle with it, because they're like, well, if you can't see it, if you can't measure it, it's not real. But I mean, that's just not how it works. You can measure it indirectly. So
Mhm.
through effects on the body, the effects on cells, the effects on structures, on water, even. You know, and then there were all of these other tests where they were measuring the energy healing or Reiki on little petri dishes of cellular structures, or little petri dishes of certain types of bacteria collected from here and there and whatever. And in all of the control tests, the ones that got Reiki had like a plus 30, 40% success rate at survival, which is just insane. You know, it's kind of like, okay, you cannot deny it. So that's for the clinical trials on energy healing. Oh, one more, which I just thought was the coolest thing. They were looking at people who, they were looking at the electrical conductivity points of the body with the elect. Okay, I don't know what it's called right now, but maybe I'll write it to you and then you can link it on the bottom. It's like this super fancy tech. So they were measuring the electrical conductivity points on the body, and they asked the people who are Reiki practitioners versus those who were not, to elevate their electrical conductivity. Now,
Mm-hmm.
each Reiki practitioners doesn't really know what that means. Elevate my electrical, like, what are we measuring here? But all of the Reiki practitioners were not only able to do it, but like, huge success rate and like by a significant amount. Some of the others were able to. I think the reason why this is important really is because, again, it shows that it's just about practice.
Yeah.
Everything is possible. It's not about, oh, they can do it and I can. No, it's about practicing like anything. You
Mm-hmm.
practice every day, imagining light coming into you and coming out of you is it.
Mm-hmm.
Start with that. And literally, I promise you that within 20 days of doing it, you will
Mm-hmm.
successfully be able to do it. You don't actually have to, be certified or do training. If that is not in your means, if you want to, go ahead. But if it's not in your means, you can still do it. Practice imagining light coming into you, giving thanks, and then coming out of you. 5 minutes every day.
Wow.
And trust me that you will be able to do it. So
So how does it work? How does it work? What's the science behind it?
Okay.
And I'm putting questions to you, which I mean, you need a separate podcast for each question, but yeah, just throw it.
I'm short. The science that we are measuring like right now is more to do with electromagnetic frequencies, electromagnetic waves, and also the quantum. So more or less when you quantum, okay. So that probably deserves a separate one.
Yeah.
But okay, basically quantum, like this is how distance healing works. Distance healing works because in the quantum world, you are entangling a certain outcome, a certain energy with a certain thing. And so in the quantum world, there is non-local, which means it doesn't have to be close together, instant communication. Now, some tests that they have done over this is they took two best friends who hung out a lot, and they would have assumed that their brains would have entangled because they
Mm-hmm.
hang out a lot. I mean, so you also see it with women's cycles,
Yeah.
people do start to tune into one another's circadian rhythms and the like. So they took two best friends and they put one in this chamber where no electromagnetic frequencies can go through. And this is fun because, most of the science is like, well, it's just electromagnetic frequencies. But the quantum is here to say, no, it works over distance too. It's not just in person. So there's something more to it as well. So they put him in this chamber and then they put flashing lights in his eyes. And then they were measuring the other guy. And
Mm-hmm.
not only was this guy's brain reacting to the flashing lights, but the other guy's brain was reacting the same way to the flashing lights that he didn't get in his eyes.
Wow.
And then put him like halfway across the globe and they did the same experiment. So there's a lot of like different types of experiments which are at the moment measuring different things. I think
Mm-hmm.
it becomes interesting when you start to piece them together because there is no one experiment which says, energy healing works because. No, you have to kind of get this experiment, which shows this thing and this one, and you kind of have to piece together the variety of information that is, connecting to quantum physics, quantum entanglement, energy, biophysics, electromagnetic frequencies, but also that there is in the quantum world, right? Like after you divide and divide and divide and divide, only spirit is left. And quantum physicists have written this, okay? Like it's not, they're like, after you just go down, there's only spirit left. Matter dissolves. And
Mm-hmm.
that to me, it's beautiful. It's true. It's only spirit is left. So even when we're talking about quantum entanglement, what we're talking about is a world where it's only spirit. So of course we can connect an intention to an outcome. And of course that they would affect each other instantly because in spirit, it's omnipresent, omnipotent, right? Like you don't need the distance. You don't need the everything else that we operate on natural laws. So it's a lot of things.
Wow. Wow. I think we need to have more podcasts with you to get this stuff out.
I get a
So
little sad about this stuff, but
it's amazing. It's amazing. And it's amazing that we are learning the science of all this stuff. I mean, it does work and there's no doubt about it. But when we know the science, that it is really a science out there, there is, more kind of faith added to it. we are we are confident that it's going to 100% work. And this is why it will help. I don't believe that there is something called as science and spirituality. I think both of it are together. It's one.
They're the
When
same.
spirituality is explained by science, we call it science.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so wonderful time that we had today, trying to understand all this stuff. Is there anything that that you feel that you missed out talking and sharing? You want to just share?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So there's this metaphor or analogy where six blind men are holding an elephant. And one is saying, what does the elephant look like? Oh, well, it's like really thin and it's kind of flexible and it has like hair at the end. No, you're totally wrong. That's not what it's like really big and it's thick and it's kind of like, I don't know, like this. Oh, no, it's totally not like that, holding the ear. It's like super thin and whatever. And I think really the point of this analogy, which I think is really funny, is that if the blind men would stop arguing on who's right and who's wrong and actually just add the information together, they would actually receive the whole picture of the elephant. They wouldn't be so alone with their little bits of information. And so I think that this, to me, is really just a metaphor on how we should treat other people's opinions. Now,
Yeah,
I'm not saying that other people's opinions are necessarily correct, but I think that we can always learn from them, no matter what it is. And I think that if we're arguing on, oh no, you're wrong, this is right, then we're missing the point. Then we're doing
true.
this blind men with the elephant thing where we might not get something that's important just because we're shutting it out because we're trying to protect our own. But it's not
Yeah,
about protecting your own. It's about coming together and learning from the different experiences. If we were all the same, we wouldn't see the
yeah,
whole elephant.
yeah. I love the point that you're making, because uh, that's what happens. Like when we are confined to a particular religion, then we start speaking about the other religion or the other group or the other modality is not right. Because I go through stuff, and when I speak about Reiki, people talk about, oh, it's demonic, it's evil, it's this. But science is proving it's healing. So how is it healing? You see,
Yeah.
why are you not looking at it in a way where it is here to benefit all of us, to the whole humankind? And Jesus did Reiki.
Isn't that, I mean, why would you shove it in the corner? Yeah.
Exactly. And when we talk about these terms like meditation, people have weird ideas. They think meditation is just done by particular religious people. When we talk about stuff like Reiki and all this stuff, I think, but when we bring the science out, it unifies everything. It unifies all the religions, and it just says, hey, this is what it is.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with your particular religion. It is universal. It is general. Just as the sun that shines on everyone, so are so is all this thing. And I think when we become broad-minded and just, as you said, just start accepting all these modalities, I think we will turn out to be better human beings and start making good use of all these modalities in our life to make ourselves better and to make the world around us better. So that's wonderful. I think that's how it would be really good to end our podcast today. And I'm sure we're going to have more podcasts in the days to come, speaking on quantum or something else. So thank you so much, Zoe. But before we wind up, uh, if people want to get connected to you or uh, ask your help in understanding, learning all this stuff, where do they look forward for?
Well, at the moment, I'm mainly operating on Instagram, although I am kind of building a YouTube thing. I'm sure we can tag me there.
Yeah.
Um, and and then I also have TikTok, but at the moment I'm kind of focusing on a Hungarian audience because it seems that they need me at the moment the most. However, English will be coming soon on TikTok too, and I'm hoping to soon set up an actual Facebook page or group or something of the sort. So I'm studying, so everything's in the works.
So do you have a website?
uh, Sort of very makeshift amateur website. It's also linked to my Instagram, but I'm still working on it. It's still a work in progress. So at the moment, I would say Instagram is the place, and then everything else
Is the
will.
best place. Okay. So we share the link of your Instagram down on our
Oh,
description.
I can also write my email. I have an email.
Yeah. Awesome.
So,
Uh,
message.
awesome. So thank you so much, Zoe, and thank you for all that you have shared. It's so informative and so beneficial. I'm sure the viewers will surely love all that you shared. Thank you once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Bye.
having me.